So I just sort of left it that that's about as good as it gets for me, that I'm not going to be able to get it. But now I can see that he wasn't my teacher. He just wasn't. He was a teacher for me at that time, but he wasn't my teacher. Just as the same way as I say that Papaji wasn't my teacher. You know, Papaji is Gangaji's teacher, but not mine. Not mine. I've read everything that Papaji ever wrote and spoke, and well, not everything, of course, but enough. So the Papaji just wasn't quite singing my melody. And I recognize now that Krishnamurti's melody wasn't quite what I was listening for, you see. But to say that Krishnamurti was not a teacher of mine at the point would be a lie. To say that no one should listen or pay any attention to Krishnamurti would be blasphemy on my part. I would hope to hell someone would shoot me if I would ever say that. It's just Wayne, you see. Wayne, in a sense, like Tony, is born into this world with a certain listening. And if your intention is pure, so to speak, and that there comes a time in your life when you say, sort of like Rod was saying yesterday, I want to know truth. And if that sort of comes into your life as through some circumstance or event, that you say, I want to know truth. I want to know truth above everything else. I want to know it. I don't even know what it is, but I want to know this undefinable thing. And if that's a sort of a prayer from the heart, it's a very individual, very private, very intimate speaking with oneself. Because if it's speaking with someone else, hey, I want to know truth, that's ego. Not always, but it could be. So if it's really a private, intimate conversation that you're having with yourself, like down on your knees almost, your singer will show up. And you will sort of know, yes. So when when Gangaji called me, which is a way of saying it, I somehow at deep knew, yes, this is a lady who's singing my song. I don't understand what the hell she's singing. I don't even know the words she's using. I don't even know if I don't recognize the melody. But somehow, I said, this is it. And I hung around for years because I couldn't do anything else. There was no options. So in this case, I mean, apparently Wayne is singing some pretty good melodies. I can't sing with a shit in this world, but apparently the heart is singing something that some people here are hearing, you know. And some people hear it and leave because they don't like what they hear. That's okay. You know, everything's allowed. There's no restrictions on anything. And sometimes we leave and we sit for a while, we listen to different singers, and maybe then we do find a singer who's more apt to sing our melody than I or somebody else, and that's fine. And sometimes we search for a few years and we find out, no, God darn it, that son of a gun sang just the way I liked it. And we come back and listen some more. But it's confirmation after a while, because after a while, some folks come here and they say, well, Wayne, tell me what I need to know. And I'll do that as much as I can, and according to what they might need. But ultimately, it comes down to we're just sitting here in SATSANG together, sharing stories, sharing experiences, and I'm confirming you, and by the act of my confirming you, you confirm me. I know you love me. And look at the beautiful, in a sense, I know this does not sound right in this world, the beautiful event that brought us together. Who can explain it? Who can speak about it? It's just there. Yes.
When Sue was talking about, going back and reading some of your old posts, well, when I first came back to ES this time, and I wrote you a private post about whatever problem I was having, you responded, and you were quite a long post to me in response. And then I went back and I read it a year later, and how you've always said, you know, the teacher is as close as you'll allow. And I went back and I read that a year later, and I was flattened by it.
Good. Don't throw away old posts.
I want to share something about when you said Krishnamurti wasn't quite speaking to you or wasn't singing your song. When I went to the Gangaji evening, and I was kind of very sleepy, because I just arrived and everything. So I kind of listened and then fell into a state of kind of, I don't know what, something in between. And I was hearing her, and I thought, I don't know, this is not my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Even though everything kind of was so, the atmosphere was just overwhelming. If you look around, the people were just, wow. Yeah? And yet, I was kind of thinking, what am I doing here? Yeah? Something like that.
Of
What
course.
am I doing here? I want to go and see my teacher.
Of course.
So I kind of felt, later I felt, I don't know. I don't get it, what they all think about this woman. Something like that,
Yeah,
you
right,
know?
right.
So when I met her next day in the park, I kind of made up with her, if you understand what I mean, because I could see, she still wasn't my teacher, but I could see what she gave to us, because she gave you.
Yes, there you
Yeah.
go.
So I thought, well, I mean, you're not my teacher, but you gave me my
There you
teacher.
go.
Yeah. So
There
I
you go.
thought, wow,
Yes, yes.
it was great. It was
That's
a
it.
beautiful experience.
That's it. That's it. That's it. You know, some people come here and they think, well, you know, I got to somehow revere this woman or even this man here, you know. That's not required. This is, you know, her picture here and his picture here, and in this case now Carlo, you know, this is me. This is my relationship in a sense, and if you like it, that's fine. I'd share it with you. But no one has to come into IATS as an example and say, Gangaji is my teacher. And just like I don't say the same thing about Papaji. However, it seems to reason, at least in this world, as far as I can figure things out, without her, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
And without him, you see what I'm saying? That's the lineage.
Yeah.
That's how the lineage goes. That as far as we can see, without him, I wouldn't be. I'd probably be out. Who knows what I'd be doing? Maybe farming or something this morning. Nothing wrong with that. So that's the way it is. Yeah.
I found a couple of things really striking in this today, like when you said about, you know, at first hearing you as like an instruction manual. It seems to me like the people that have left recently were taking your words rather than through the heart. We're taking them as instructions
Yes.
a lot of times,
Yeah.
and taking them as orders. And the other thing that really struck me was trying to explain, like you said about with the going to the seminar, if you think you're going to get, it is hard to put into words what, you know, what can come, because it struck me as how similar it was in trying to explain to my mother why I was coming to another
Of
gathering.
course. Of course.
You know, you've already met everybody, but there's a heart calling that, and then that line from the Bible, wherever two or more of you are gathered.
Yes. Yes. That's a good teaching.
Is like the best words I can put to it. You
See,
know?
so you could read the Bible, which many of us have, and at least most of us are familiar with that saying, two or more are gathered. And it's at first we can see, well, I got to get together with another person, and then we have to invoke Jesus' name, and then we have to do this. You know, that's sort of a common way of looking at it. Nothing wrong with that. And finally, when we get two or more together, we say, well, that's what he meant. Of course, I got it.
But trying to explain that to someone, you know.
Yeah, well, don't cast pearls before swine. You know, don't waste your time. And I'm not calling your mother a swine.
Yes, I
But you know,
Right now,
you know, you can use better use of your time than trying to convince, because if you're trying to convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced, that's you.
No,
That's your ego. doing a number. Well, you got to believe me because if I go out this guy, he, they don't care. It's like we say, I don't go into the supermarket and say to the checkout lady, I got the truth. Oh, she doesn't care. She's probably thinking about, what am I going to make for supper tonight? Who's this jerk? So there's no crusade here. That's why, if people show up for gatherings, they show up, 2, 10, 20, 30, whatever the number is. There's no number has to show up. Like quiet time, there's no crusade here. There's no crusade to recruit people into EOS, as much as some people would like to think that's what we do. It's just nothing to do with that. It's easy. Did you have something, Bill?
In my search, I've dabbled with a lot of different teachers. And the most powerful one for me was Jesus. And then you heard about. And I've looked at all these different relationships with all these different teachers, and I can see clearly you're the only one that I've fallen in love with. As close as to that as I came with Jesus, it was still a book and words on paper
Yes.
and in the
Yes.
imagination
Yes.
and building an image. But there was no one to fall in love with. And
Yes.
I loved to listen to Gangaji, the voices, and to read some Papaji and some Ramana. But that falling in love,
Yes.
falling into the teacher, is missing unless you have a living teacher in front of you that says...
That's a very good point, Bill. A very good point, and a point we should probably spend at least a couple minutes looking at, because it's the idea of a living teacher is fraught with a lot of psychological minefields. So it probably would be good just to look at a couple of them. Now, I made a statement some time back in writing, and I stand by it, and I stood by it when I made it, and to this day. For most people that I know of, at least everybody that I've met, I said unequivocally, you need a living teacher. Because, as we've all heard the expression, I mean, Trudy first brought it up, but she didn't invent it, dead teachers don't kick ass. It's a very good expression. It has a lot of wisdom in it. So, I say that for most people, as far as I can remember and know now, that we do need living teachers. I certainly needed one. Because it stands to reason that if you don't have a living teacher, then it's just the ego. You're just listening to yourself. It's just stuff. And you can just glorify yourself to the high heavens in a sort of a pseudo-intellectual scenario. And we've all probably done that. We've seen it done. But when you do that, if you have someone in your life who's a teacher, who's going to go up to you and say, you're a jerk. Now, if you've got that relationship, as we've said recently, then you'll listen to that, like maybe I am a jerk, because your love for this person is higher than what he or she says to you. It may sound like a derogatory manner. Now, the minefields are these. Your relationship with that teacher can be very, very interesting, very, very interesting, because in the beginning, it can include all kinds of things. It can be, now if the teacher is somebody who's really singing your song, really singing to your heart, then you can get it on that level. Like, oh God, this is the person I've really been looking for. Right? Now you have to watch out, because this person is also a human being. If the person is presenting themselves as not as a human being, I would say you want to listen to see if that's really the song you're listening for. But what I call authentic teachers, the ones that I've known, are completely human too. I mean, they just screw up just like the rest of us do. But there's something there that can't very well to be defined, that there's a speaking to. So when you first meet a teacher, one thing that can happen is you can fall in love with this teacher in a couple, 3, 4 different ways. Okay, and one of the ways could be romantically. Now, people who kind of want to be teachers, and wanting to be a teacher, not wanting to be a teacher, has nothing to do with ever being one or not being one. It's kind of not up to you. But people who want to be teachers, they look at some people who are, let's say, an authentic teacher, and they like what they see. Because it does appear, for sure, in this world, that the teacher has at least a certain amount of people listening to him. 1, 2, 3, could be hundreds, thousands in some cases. And that's a kind of a trip that's kind of nice to entertain. Well, wow, all I gotta do is be a teacher and look at, I have all these teachers sitting around looking at me like, whoa. That's what I want. I mean, no one's ever looked at me like, whoa. I'd like to have that, so I think I'll be a teacher. Well, some of us go through that. That works for a while and then it goes away. The other thing is, depending upon whether you're heterosexual or homosexual, you sort of fall in love that way. You know, saying, man, I'd like to go to bed with this guy or this gal. I had an experience with this, not my personal experience with Gangaji, but I knew a fellow who I used to sit with and listen to videos, was in love with her romantically. And he never did get what she was saying, by the way. And you can, from what I just said, you can see why. Because he was seeing her as a romantic figure. Now, she's a nice-looking woman, obviously. Personality, she's 60-some years old, great. So you can understand a person falling in love with her romantically. But he then missed the whole picture. But that's also something that can happen. Now, it depends upon the skill of the teacher, because that's why there's so much abuse in the kind of spiritual teacher guru field, because it's so easy to abuse people, so easy to abuse them, because once they're sort of seeing you as a spiritual leader, it's a very small step to being able to, in a sense, abuse them spiritually. Now, that's another minefield, another one you have to watch out for. Now, I've never quite dug into this deep, at least recently, so I'm going to have to pick my words very carefully. God, it's tough. I have to really look at this. And so here's another little aside. There's little road maps coming up, little trails coming off of this thing that I'm looking at. I'm not saying anything because you won't get it. This is entirely my responsibility to look at this, to put it out in a way that you can get it the way I'm trying to say it. Okay. And it's not to say that sex is not spiritual either. Okay. So in one sense, it's kind of all included. In other words, if you start speaking truth, so to speak, and you say, okay, this is truth, but this isn't, you're a liar. Okay? Everything is included. Everything is included. Yes and no. And maybe. It's all included. So the stories that we read, and we like to read them, is when the guru falls. Now, in the history, and recently, actually, within the last 20 or 30 years, there's been some pretty well-known cases of some guys, usually I don't know of any women offhand, but men, spiritual gurus, who got caught with their hand in the panties. Okay? Now, I happen to know one of these fellows, right? I don't know him intimately, but I know him, right? What a tragedy. What a tragedy. Because this guy was a teacher, and he still is, but he's just sort of not out there anymore as he was before. Now, he did, in fact, have sexual relations with, I think, 2 of his followers. Okay, 2 as far as I can remember, might have been 3, but it wasn't many, 2 or 3. Now, stop holding that for a second. I'm saying 2 things here. I'm saying this man is an authentic teacher. He is an authentic teacher. And almost everyone who stands in his presence and listens to him is affected in some deep level. Second, he did have sexual relations with 2 or 3 or some very small number of the hundreds of people who knew this man. Now, we should all be aware here of how easy it is to turn away. We've seen recent examples of this in our own family here. We have seen recent examples of people in this family, Judy, Carolyn, Franklin, Scott, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 others perhaps, that have turned away. Some of the turning away has been dramatic. It's been within days. Within 2 or 3 days, the switch has come, and the turning away has come. All right. Now, let's say, for instance, that I was having sexual relationships with these people in the domain it happened before. Let's say I did. I didn't, but let's say I did. Can you imagine where I'd be at right now?
Front page.
Front page news. Front page news, okay? And of course, people would pick it up and they'd even say, okay, I got that guy's game, I got Wayne's game. All Wayne is about is sex and drugs and rock and roll. All right? And I wouldn't blame for believing that because that's the way it looks in this world. So, one has to be aware of that in this world those things can happen. Good people can be brought down. The story of the Bible is a perfect example of it. Here's a poor fellow who didn't do anything to hurt anybody. And there he is, hanging on a cross saying, I'm thirsty. Just suffering, you know. What did he do? But that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. And it keeps on going round and round and round. So we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, no, a guru should never have sex with anybody. Or that they should. It's not that easily determined. It can't be seen until you're there yourself. See, sitting on this side, you see it one way, and then sitting on this side, you see another. It's the same way with the spiritual books. You see. So if you're seeing it one way and say, this is the way it is, wait and see. Wait and see. But if you say that this is the way it is and I'm not changing, you will be searching forever. It doesn't get any better than this. It does not get any better than this Yachts family. For many, many reasons. Because of who we are, because of our caring for each other, because of what we're saying, because of what we're pointing to. In spite of what some people would say who may have left, it doesn't get any better than this. I'm not asking you to believe me. Sometimes we have to go out and see. I certainly did. I certainly did my share of searching. But once we try to bring this world's values, mores, commandments into the world of truth and try and prove something, as I understand, you got a post yesterday, did you, or something? Put a flower on it or something?
Yeah.
You did? Okay. What did it say?
It's
Was it short, just a little post, right?
It was just a postcard, and the water lily doesn't ask, who am I?
That sounds good, doesn't it?
Who sent that?
Trudy.
Trudy did.
Well, it does sound good, I have to admit. It does sound good. And I used to like those Hallmark spirituality sayings myself.
She sent it with a purpose. It was not just.
Sure.
Well, you know, that's okay. So that's fine.
Just a little jab.
No problem with this. I guess,
Just a little jab.
of course. But you know, if we there's a way of being in this world that says, turn the other cheek. I got that one. But sometimes it doesn't quite mean what it looks like it's supposed to mean. For instance, let's say someone is just kind of bugging you and saying you're all fucked up and all sorts of things. Well, are you supposed to just sit there forever and listen to it? Or are you finally, I'm not saying you, Susie, necessarily, but it could include you, are you finally ready to put on this here little Superman teacher's robe, and I mean that sincere, like a teacher's role, and say something as simply as, why are you sending this to me? And then demanding a response. When you come from truth, as opposed to this world, the words will just come and serve you. You know that. They will just come and serve you. But to let someone do that out of arrogance, I mean, why would they send that to you? I mean, what's the point? The point is obviously that you don't know something and they do. So the response, one of the responses, why are you sending this to me? I'd be interested.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I have a postcard inside. If you want to send it back, it says "Water lilies don't send postcards."
That's good.
You know, Dan, I thought exactly the same thing. Great minds think together. Water lilies don't do a lot of things. But that's essentially exactly what you say. Exactly.
Well, actually, this isn't a punchline.
But don't just send it to the person. You see, we like to hide when we do things, right? Like we're sort of like if we do something, even in this world, anything, when we do something and we're really going to zing somebody, we sort of like to not show our evil nature, so we kind of do it. Yeah, yes. But we don't want anybody else to know that because we're wearing holy robes in front of everybody else, don't you know? So when you do that, you say, I don't know if there's any other recipient than you to that thing. But, well, you know, expose it. Water really can't get that. It's done and over in two one. What you don't want to do is get into an argument with anybody because they're just going to come back with another argument. What do you mean Wayne's a bad guy? Well, I can tell you all kinds of ways he's a bad guy. Well, he's not such a bad guy. Well, he's...
Feel that frown.
I didn't hear that. Oh yeah, I tell ya.
Anybody use Were you thinking about bears?
Oh, I was.
Go on now.
No, I did bangs instead.
Oh, okay. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. I was just wondering if anybody...
I think Deborah's had spiritual Botox or something. She says
Yeah.
Deborah's face.
John Kerry.
She had to go pick up Augie.
Where is she?
She had to go get Augie.
Yeah.
Oh,
For the day. Just for the day.
That's okay.
and Kenji, I want to reinforce with you. I spoke with Kenji yesterday, and you know his nephew is living with them now. And you know if you want to come up, we'll get him today or tomorrow morning or something like that. You know, then be my guest. So it'd be great to have him. Was anybody going to take a? Yeah, today might be a good day to look to the lakes if you're thinking about it. Anybody thinking of doing it? Some idea whose time has run.
What time are you going to do afternoon satsang?
Well, if people are going up to the lakes, we'll do it when they come back.
Maybe do it after dinner or something, huh?
No,
That doesn't work.
we'll push dinner back.
Okay.
Wayne, we were thinking about, Kenji said there is a lake called Kangaroo Lake.
Kangaroo Lake, accessible. You can walk into it. I mean, you can drive into
Yeah, we thought we might go
Okay.
there.
it.
actually.
Kangaroo Lake, good lake.
Okay.
Well,
Might
all
be a
you do
little
is you
too
go
hot
out the
to
back
walk
way.
up to
You
Payne
turn
Lake.
right instead of going left like you go to that. Now you
Okay.
turn right.
Kangaroo Lake
And
sounds
you
good.
stay on this road. Now, past Callahan, the road highway 3 will go off to the right to Weaverville that way, but you stay onto a little bit of truth. And I said, oh, what the heck, man. I was doing a seminar. I designed a seminar one time called Discover when I was still working, by the way. And it was really getting some momentum behind it, and all of a sudden I just stopped the thing. I said, I'm not going to do it anymore, but I have the basis of it put together, and that was a lot of little sayings. I like them all. But anyway. Becoming, you know, we say we're becoming something. Becoming is the most difficult urge to undo.